Earth Systems 3209, Unit 2, Historical Geology. Text references can be seen in Chapter 6, Chapter 8, Appendix A, and Appendix B. Unit 2, Topic 3.1 will focus on the fossils and geologic time. In this presentation, we will focus on defining fossil and explaining how fossils are used to subdivide geologic time. A fossil is the remains or traces of once living things found in sedimentary rocks. If we look at the diagram to the right, we can see once remaining remains from a leaf that was a prehistoric plant from prehistoric time. When plants and animals die, they get buried in sediment, and the soft parts usually decay, with the hard parts being fossilized when the sediment turns into solid rock. Fossils provide the basis by which subdivisions of geologic time are divided. You can find information in the textbook on pages 183 to 186. Fossils are very important when looking at geologic time. The record of life in the geologic past may perhaps be biased. Fossil records show an abundance of organisms that contain hard parts and lived in environments of high sedimentation. However, only a glimpse of the numerous other life forms exist in the fossil record. Most of these fossils are found in the last 13% of geologic time. The preceding 87% of geologic time, known as the Precambrian, show very little evidence of fossils, and primarily because there was a lack of hard parts, and mainly only soft-bodied organisms and bacteria and the like were existed back before the Precambrian. In the early 1800s, an English scientist named William Smith noticed that some fossils were identified in the same rock types. This evidence was background work for one of the fundamental principles of historical geology, known as the principle of fossil succession. This principle states that fossil organisms succeed one another in a definite and determined order, and therefore any time period can be recognized by its fossil content. In the geologic past, fossils can be identified and they progress through time in a fixed pattern. One of the questions that geologists commonly ask concerning fossils and their importance in geology is, what is the importance of the fossils to a geologist, and what does a fossil indicate? One thing that fossils indicate is the age of sedimentary rocks. Within each division of time, there are many subdivisions based on certain species of fossils. For example, the divisions of geologic timescale are subdivided according to the presence or the absence of certain fossils. The same succession of fossils within sedimentary layers are seen on every landmass worldwide. The second question that can be asked with regard to fossils is, fossils indicate the environment in which rocks formed. Knowing the nature of life forms that existed knowing the nature of life forms that existed at a particular time may indicate the environment in which sedimentary rocks formed. Past environments can be indicated by studying the nature and characteristics of sedimentary rocks and the fossils they contain. For example, if you have a clamshell found in limestone, a geologist could assume that the region was covered by a shallow sea, because that is where clamshells are found today. And this assumption ties back to a topic in Unit 1, which we refer to as uniformitarianism. Fossil characteristics reveal what type of environment the organism lived in the past. Another example could be tied into palm trees. If rocks contain fossils of palm trees, one can assume that the environment was a tropical, warm, temperate climate, because this is where palm trees grow today. The third thing indicated by fossils are used to correlate and match up rock types. Once fossils were recognized as time indicators, they became a useful means of correlating or matching up rocks of similar age in different regions. Scientists use fossils called index fossils, which are widespread geographically and are limited to a short span of geologic time. The presence of these fossils are important when matching rocks of the same age. So referring back to index fossils, it is important that you know that index fossils are widespread geographically. That means they're found over a wide geographic area, and they're also limited to a short span of geologic time. These are your two common points that highlight an index fossil. Index fossils are not present. Then groups of fossils in the same rocks are used to correlate rocks of the same age. So we can correlate rocks over a widespread area by using, number one, an index fossil, or number two, we can look for groups of fossils that are found in the same rock types over a wide area and contained in the same age of rocks. The fourth thing that's indicated by fossils is fossils provide the basis to subdivide geologic time. By studying characteristics of certain fossils and the types of fossils present in sedimentary rocks, different aspects of geologic past can be interpreted by the geologist, such as temperature, climate, type of environment, etc. And the fifth thing that can be indicated by fossils and why they're important in geology is fossils can also indicate evolutionary pathways. With an understanding of the principle of fossil succession, when fossils are arranged according to their age by applying the law of superposition, which states that lower layers are older than all the layers above it, fossils in these layers of rock show progressive change, demonstrating the evolution of life through time. For example, when we look at the Phanerozoic eon, and in particular the Paleozoic era, we see the age of the invertebrates, where such organisms as trilobites are recognized early in the fossil record. Then, in succession, paleontologists recognize an age of the fishes, which are represented in the middle Paleozoic, an age of the amphibians, which is located in the late Paleozoic, followed by an age of the reptiles in the Mesozoic, and the age of the mammals in the Cenozoic. Thus, it is thought that invertebrates evolved to form fish, which evolved into amphibians, which evolved into reptiles, and finally evolved into mammals. Let's look at a few examples from past public exams. First example reads, which is used to conclude that layer B is the same age as layer D. So if we look at the diagrams to the right, we can see an outcrop or rock sequence number 1. Layer B is represented by bricks, which is limestone, and it also has a certain type of fossil inside of the limestone. When referring to outcrop 2, or rock sequence number 2, we see that the same rock type, limestone, has the same organism inside of the rock. The presence of these fossils in rock type B in diagram 1 and rock type D in diagram 2 will demonstrate that these two rock types are very closely related and possibly match up. So to answer the question, which is used to conclude that layer B is the same age as layer D, we would use the matching up of the fossils within the limestone, and this is called fossil correlation. So the answer to example 1 is A. Example 2. Which best describes the progression of life forms from Precambrian to the Cenozoic? So in the preceding slides, we noticed that the change in life forms existed throughout the Paleozoic, the Mesozoic, and the Cenozoic era, where we had invertebrates evolving into fishes, which evolved into amphibians, which evolved into reptiles, and lastly evolved into mammals, which dominate the Earth today. So if we look back at Precambrian time, there was very little evidence of any fossils with hard parts. The only fossil evidence that we see, or one of the main types of fossil evidence that we see in Precambrian time, would be bacteria. So looking at our choices, choice A states that bacteria evolved into dinosaurs, which are reptiles, which evolved into trilobites, which are invertebrates, which evolved into mammoths, which are mammals. This choice would not be a good choice because dinosaurs, which are reptiles, precede trilobites, which are invertebrates. And in the previous slides, we noticed that invertebrates evolved before reptiles. Our second choice states that bacteria in the Precambrian evolved into trilobites, which evolved into dinosaurs, which then progressed into mammoths. This will be our best choice because in the Precambrian time we had no hard body parts and there was ample bacteria being found in rocks as fossils. And then in early Paleozoic we find trilobites, in the Mesozoic we find dinosaurs, and in the Cenozoic we find mammoths, which are mammals. Therefore, the best answer for example number 2 would be B. Your turn. Take the time and complete the following questions. Solutions will follow on the next slide. Which is the characteristic of an index fossil? From our choices, our answer here would be A. Index fossils are limited to a short span of geologic time. The other characteristic, which is indicative of an index fossil, it is widespread over a wide geographic area. So the solution to the question, which is characteristic of an index fossil, the answer will be A, limited to a short span of geologic time. In summary, some of the overview of the points we covered. First of all, fossils are the remains or traces of organisms found in sedimentary rocks, and we use fossils to subdivide geologic time. Some of the important characteristics of fossils in geology. Number 1, fossils indicate the age of sedimentary rocks. Fossils can indicate the environment in which a rock formed. Fossils are used to correlate or match up rock layers over wide geographic areas. Fossils also provide the basis to subdivide geologic time. And fossils can indicate evolutionary pathways.